Good morning, Karen. Lights on, lights off. Jury deliberations are set to begin today. Some additional jury instructions perhaps to be discussed this morning. The jury will be instructed. Deliberations are going to take place yesterday, last night. Closing arguments went into 8 p.m. So we are starting today. There are thumbs down, thumbs up, bubbles. There's a lot of activity. Another thumbs down. Not sure
I
where
don't know
these thumbs down. Do you know where are you doing that? Do you know where this is coming from, Karen? There's a lot happening right now, but Karen, if you can give a lot of stimuli, if you could give us your assessment of what we can expect today, that would be great, Karen.
Yeah, so look, this morning is going to be a 10 a.m. start date or start time, I should say, for the case. And they're going to come in and the judge will charge the jury. I guess if there's any last minute requests for charge, that could also happen this morning. If the defense suddenly decides that they want the lesser included of the misdemeanor falsification of business records submitted to the jury, it has to be the defense request here because the statute of limitations has run on the misdemeanor. So they'd have to waive the statute of limitations. And that's just the time within which that they have to bring a case, right? That the prosecution has to bring a case. It's within 2 years if it's a misdemeanor, but that can be waived. But no one has given any indication that they want that. I think the defense and the prosecution want an all or nothing felony or nothing. They don't want the jury to compromise. So, and that's a gamble on the part of the defense, frankly, but they could still ask for that today. If that's what they want, they could ask for any other last minute instructions. Otherwise, I think the judge's instructions are pretty much set. I'm sure he's given them. I know he's given them to the defense and the prosecution. We haven't seen them yet. And he did mention, the judge, something like, well, there were no objections this morning. He said something that there were no objections over the weekend to them. And so those are going to go to the jury. So I think we could just, if everyone shows up on time at 10 a.m. tomorrow, or today, I should say, at 10 a.m., what could happen is the judge could charge the jury right away, and they could start deliberating an hour after that, like 11 o'clock in the morning. They'll have the case, and they'll be in a room behind the courtroom. It's the jury deliberation room. It's where the jury goes in between, like when they take breaks during the day, the jury goes back there. The jury keeps their stuff back there. They have lunch back there if they want. They can sit back there. It's a very small room with a big table and chairs all around it. And there's bathrooms in there. And that's about it. Windows. But that's about all that's in there. And they stay in that room and they go through all 34 counts one by one. And they will likely go, it's not an all or nothing proposition where they'll say, oh, do you find him guilty all the way or not guilty all the way? Usually they'll go one count by count. And I think in this particular case, you could see the jury potentially even ruling differently on different counts. So for example, 9 of the checks were signed by Trump, but 2 of them were not. And so you could see that I think they were signed by his adult sons who were running the Trump organization. You could see them saying, well, maybe Trump didn't falsify those 2 because they weren't signed by him, or who knows? I mean, I'm just making that up as some kind of compromise they could make, or somehow they could view it slightly differently than some of the other counts. They could hang on some, meaning they can't come to a unanimous verdict, guilty or not guilty. And the other thing too is this is not a thing where they look for, is he innocent or guilty? This is not about innocence. It's whether did the prosecution prove this case beyond a reasonable doubt? And so again, if they don't find him guilty of some of the charges or even all of the charges, it's because the prosecution didn't meet the burden of proof, not because he's necessarily innocent of these crimes. So that's what you're going to see happen. There's the jury can The jury can ask for the evidence to be taken back into the room. They can ask for read back. If they want something like read back, they press a buzzer. Usually they're supposed to do one buzz if they have a note and two buzzes if they have a verdict, but it's not always like that. Sometimes it's just one buzz, no matter what, for whatever. And they send a note out saying what they want. And then the parties will look at the note, and then the note gets entered into evidence as a court exhibit. It's part of the record, the official court record. And then the parties and the judge all discuss what would be responsive to the note. Sometimes they ask for things that is inappropriate. Like if they say, we want the summations read back again. Well, they're not allowed to have the summations read back, or we want the openings read back to us. That's not evidence. It's just argument, and that's not appropriate. So then they'll discuss how should we respond to the jury, and then they'll all agree on what the response to that note will be. And then they bring the jury out, and then the judge says to the jury whatever they all agreed on. Or if they ask for a particular readback, like I want all of Stormy Daniels' testimony, or I want all of Stormy Daniels' cross-examination, or I want this part of Michael Cohen's direct and this part of Michael Cohen's cross. Then what happens is the court reporter will have to look through the transcripts and find those portions of the transcripts that are responsive to that note. Again, sometimes the parties will argue over, well, no, but there was this other part that also talked about it, and I want that part read back. And so finally they'll come to a consensus of what they're going to read back to the jury. They bring the jury in, and the court reporter will sit there and read that portion of the testimony to the jury. It can take as long as whatever that portion of the testimony was. So deliberations can take days, right? Michael Cohen was on the stand for days. If they asked for readback of all of Michael Cohen's testimony, that will take as long as it took for him to testify in the first place. So sometimes the judge will call the jury in and say, okay, we found the portion of the testimony that's responsive to the note. We anticipate it'll take 6 hours to read that to you. Please go back and let me know, is that what you want? Send a note, or do you want only part of that, but send it out with a note. And so sometimes they'll do that. So there's all sorts of permutations of things, but deliberations take a while usually, especially in a case like this.
So it's finally here, Karen. We've been talking about this day. Technically, what that means is that we are on jury watch, right? I mean, I don't think either of us expect, or I don't think any credible legal observer expects that there's going to be a verdict today. But once the case is with the jury, at any time we could hear those beep, beep, or the buzz, buzz. I'm bad at making buzz noises. And we can hear that there is a verdict. So, this is where everyone kind of sits around on pins and needles as we await, what this outcome is going to be. You and I will keep everybody up to date in terms of any questions that are being asked. If the jury's requesting anything, we can try to see if we can interpret what that means or may possibly mean, and we'll keep everybody updated. That's why everybody needs to keep checking back on the Midas Touch YouTube channel for all of the updates throughout the day, because as soon as there's something breaking, we will get it up. We will get stuff up about it right away. Karen, any final reflections or final things you want our audience to be thinking about as we head into deliberations now that the evidentiary and summation phase is over, and now the case is in the hands of the jury? Final thoughts, I suppose.
Yeah, look, I mean, the hardest part is the tea leaf reading, right? It's where when they send the note out, everybody will speculate. What do they mean? Why do they want that? What's so important about that? And I just, that's the hardest part of jury deliberations, I think, is everybody's on pins and needles. And so, I caution all of us, myself included, because I'm going to be speculating too. So I'm almost saying this out loud to remind myself as well, that we don't necessarily know, and whatever the jury needs to help make the decisions is what they'll ask for. So.
Well, Karen, it's been a true honor and a privilege to co-host this continuing coverage with you of the Trump criminal trial, the Midas Touch Network, the #1 destination on digital for coverage of the Trump criminal trial, thanks to your stewardship and leadership. We will continue to provide updates to everybody throughout the day until there's a verdict. Once there is a verdict, Michael Cohen said that he'll be able to share his thoughts with me on Political Beatdown and do a live recording here. He hasn't spoken. So from all angles, we've got this covered, from Karen Friedman Agnifilo's experience to people who were actually one of the main witnesses testifying. You don't get better coverage than that, huh?
Exactly.
Thank you all for watching. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together. Thanks as always, Karen. Have a good one.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the Midas Touch newsletter at MidasTouch.com/newsletter.